I would like to welcome you to the session on cybersecurity, which is perhaps one of the most sensitive areas today. And I'm happy to see you in Wrocław, and especially beautiful side to Odra River, which is also a sign of Europe. Odra in Polish, well, it sounds a little bit strange, but it's even not German name. So German name is Oder, which looks similar, and actually it is a Celtic name, old Celtic name, and it means it comes from Indo-European water. So if you think about Adria Sea, it's the same. It's also water. So we are on the water, and as you see, the name is European. Well, not really Central European, because the cells are not living here anymore, already some maybe 2,000 years and more. Anyway, if there are any cells, again, yeah, I have a beautiful day and beautiful topics, and we will start with session on the first session with our guests on cybersecurity, different topics. Our idea was to talk about cybersecurity in the way just to think about the crucial questions and some challenges that we have at the moment. Well, we always have challenges in cybersecurity, but sometimes the challenges are just have more impact than before. If we move to digitalization, there's a lot of problems about cybersecurity. The COVID was just moving into rapidly to IT systems, and also the people that are not prepared to that, and also the system not prepared to that. So we have such a situation, and now we have to follow the new challenges and create a new world. So resetting through all these problems today is also something good, because if we have the same situation all the time, we stop thinking, we start developing, we are becoming lazy. So it's a kind of evolution with some stimulation from the past. So I would like first to introduce Professor Kai Rannenberg from Goethe Universität in Frankfurt, which is not so far away from Wrocław, because, well, it's 1 hour flight or less. So you start and land. And if on the motorway, it's slightly longer with a lot of traffic jams on the way. But anyway, Kai is one of the recognized specialists, and not only scientists, but also very active in technology transfer, I would say, or knowledge transfer, which is as important as making research. So convincing the people to do the security in the right way, and done a lot of projects that I'm particularly connected with my heart. Data protection, identity management. This is something that we have one of the critical problems. Kai, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you very much for this very honorful invitation to this and very important conference, and to the great reward that I was able to enjoy to see Wrocław in golden autumn. I think I can say, with all of the sunshine, wonderful news that I was able to enjoy since Sunday, and the hospitality of so many very nice people, including Mirek with his very nice introduction. So I feel really, really very honored by this invitation, and I hope I can deliver some input for the discussion on the future of cybersecurity that will hopefully also enable us to discuss some of the issues, because a lot of the future of cybersecurity requires discussion. And I was just about to say, it obviously worked out that the organizers said we want to have more young people in the field, which we definitely need in cybersecurity. It's great to see more people coming here. You just come. Well, you missed a wonderful introduction from Mirek Kutilovsky, actually, but you still come in time for this talk. So my name is Kai Rannenberg, as you heard about it. It's not the Frankfurt on the Oder. My Frankfurt has also a river, the Main, which is not as big as the Oder, but it's also has some European point, and it has, I think, the similar spirit that a river is a good place to make people meet, come together, and do joint things and do good things. So that holds for both of the Frankfurts. As I'm from Germany, so you will see an agenda and on this talk. So I'll try to start with what is the future, where are we actually standing? And that's some of my personal remarks that I'm going to make. And maybe that will trigger also some discussion. And I will then introduce a European-wide initiative that indeed, as Mirek said already, is partly on science and partly also on science and technology transfer, because that is something which in Europe we need to do much more. And I will introduce a project called Cybersecurity and advertise it some, because I hope it's useful for you and useful for you also. As I'm a German professor, I have to give a summary and an outlook, otherwise I lose my pension. So please, you need to stand with that. And that is basically what we're going to do. So where are we? We are somewhere. That's why also this conference exists, the technology forum. We are in the middle of some kind of digitalization. And what does digitalization mean when you come from a cybersecurity background? It basically means that more data is flowing, and the data flow is also more intensive in all kinds of technologies, be it big video conference systems that we're now using much more after the pandemic, or is it small little computers in shoes, in t-shirts, in all kinds of stuff, and very close to our body and doing many things with us. All of that is basically happening. And what you may have seen as an advertisement from the digitalization experts or maybe advocates is data are the new oil, because they are what needs to many things to work actually. Now, this is an interesting term, because they can say, okay, you need data everywhere and try to collect them and so on, like I would say like mad from a security point of view. But at the same time, it's useful to take a look back into history. If you maybe remember some of the oil rush and gold rush scenarios in places where oil was found, and you took a look at the oil markets from those days. Well, now we have another oil market or gas market scenario that is quite rough, but you had also in the history, you had oil markets, and oil markets were usually quite rough markets. And civilizing oil markets to some civilized behavior to make sure that the people who need protection actually have protection is something that was a civilizational effort and a civilizational achievement over which took years. And now if we say data is a new oil, dealing with this data again requires some civilizational effort, which can be partly supported by technology, and it cannot work without technology, but it requires also a few more things with regard to beyond technology. And that's basically where two of the questions could be. Is actually cybersecurity understood as a core of successful digital transformation? Because that is actually the theme of the conference. And when you're a security person, you start to doubt things. You think, well, this was stated. Is it actually true? And we want to probably in this conference, it's a good idea in the sub-conference to discuss it and see, is it actually like that? And system secure with regard to this and current reality, and then proof on cybersecurity. So these are some of the things that I try to discuss it. Before we do that, maybe for people of you who are not so close to cybersecurity, I try to introduce this slide, which is telling a bit also about what digital actually has for kind of and privacy. The colors are not stolen from Google, but they actually refer to certain security properties here. But what you can see, at least my view of, let's say, a few years of experience with digitalization, is certain things get easier and faster with digitalization, and certain things are more difficult, and that has a security impact. So anybody of you who remembers the old days when you had no computers and no diskettes and no email, and no social networks to distribute something, you needed to print or find some other ways, or maybe cast into stone. And all of that was quite difficult. So multiplying and copying and distributing is much easier now in the digital world. That is definitely for sure. And that has an impact on availability as a security property and also on confidentiality, because if you try to delete data or to limit data flows, that is much more difficult. That is nice when you want to overcome censorship. Then it's actually quite good that these things can be limited. But then it's about personal data on the internet. Maybe some of you have some experience with your personal data or videos, embarrassing videos on social media. That can be something that is much more difficult actually to have. And quite a few people, I see a number of younger people here, you probably experienced that already. And I had a dean only 5 years ago, and we had an embarrassing video on some student parties on the internet and on YouTube and a few other channels. And he said, after that came up to the light, he said, okay, we deleted it from YouTube, we deleted it from Facebook, the problem should be over. And I must say, I'm not in the computer science faculty, I'm the business faculty, I'm the business informatics person there. That guy was economics and finance. So maybe he needed to learn a bit more about the internet at that point in time, and meanwhile he has. But this is a kind of misunderstanding that you can still have with quite a few people in decision positions. They don't understand that deleting is much more difficult than it used to be. What other things do we have? We have modification. Modification is much easier if you worked in the old days or asked your parents when they tried to do something with a typewriter and then they mistyped, and there was a lot of effort to remove a letter that was mistyped. Nowadays, you click a mouse and you put something here and there, and modification is easy. On the other side, what is much more difficult now is distinguishing originals and copies. The whole idea of an original document and goes away, which is a quite important thing when you think about lots of money that is actually somehow dealt with original documents, like cash money, for example. Much more difficult to recognize and detect changes or even manipulations of things. That is requires lots of effort. There are digital signatures, but digital signatures require a whole infrastructure to actually set up. So quite a bit of things is more difficult, and also to recognize originators is much more difficult. So we need to deal with that if we want to keep these kind of civilizational values again. And then there are a number of things where it's also an interesting, which are maybe not directly security, but relevant. Searching, sorting, analyzing is much easier. Everybody can sort data today with an Excel sheet or anything like that. So consumer technology can help you to sort relatively large amount of data and analyze it at least to some degree. And stronger technology can do so much more, including translation. But comprehending and checking processing steps, for example, in the area of artificial intelligence and learning, understanding why actually were certain decisions made on which basis of rationale, that is much harder to understand. So that's something that we need to take care of. So with that background, it's useful to take a look on another look where we are. You see the same questions here again on the left side. Where are we? What, and are we secure enough, and so on? And I try to be diplomatic because I'm keynote here, so I don't say yes or no, but I give you some lists of things that maybe we should usefully do. And the first thing is actually, have we understood cybersecurity as a core of digital successful digital transformation? And the first point I would say, and actually if you've been at the conference yesterday, you've seen quite a bit of view that in Europe and its values, civilizational values are under threat to some degree. We need to fight for them. We need to help people who are fighting from that. Neighbors in Ukraine, obviously, Poland is doing a great job in helping there. And what we also need to make sure is that when we do security, which is very often considered as a top-down and one person decides move forward thing, which in some emergency situations may be needed, but the core of a civilization and of a democracy, so the core of these European values that we want to defend, is actually and strengthen the power of people that are not necessarily asked always. So can we make sure that our security that we're doing is actually preserving this kind of protection? That is one of the challenges where we still need to do something. And then the point is, are our systems secure? First question actually is, do we understand our systems? Do we know which systems are in which status? And do we need to learn more about the analysis there? And I can tell you for some of systems we know something. For quite a few, we need to learn more. And we need more European collaboration on that because, as we know, quite a few of the threats, they don't end at borders. And so from that point of view, it's very good that these kind of European initiatives are happening. And the next point is, do we improve? there's the 2 points that I want to point out a bit. We need to do some technology knowledge to action. And you see some examples, and we need more consistent regulation also. It's good that we can discuss regulation, but we should really do that. We should make use of these civilizational values that we have and the freedoms and to discuss things. So technology transfer and strategies. These are 3 examples from, let's say, the last 25 years where European technology development has happened and was, let's say, in a strategic complex situation and more or less successful. So the first one is the mobile phone network. Maybe the younger of you don't remember, but originally the first real successful digital phone network was coming with a standard called GSM, and Global System for Mobile Communication or Group Special Mobile, depending on how old the literature is you take a look at. And it was an idea, an investment from the European Union and from those days state-owned telecommunication companies in the 80s of the last century. And it was a standard. The standard was done in Europe by an organization called MC. It got successful. It got harmonized in Europe. It got globally successful. And widespread consumerization was happening. Everybody of us now has a mobile phone and can afford it. And basically, this kind of cloud-based networks is the basis for global communication and global communication in all of the world. Quite a bit of that since the second generation of mobile communication was lost. It's more global now, and Europe has not as much influence on it as it used to have. And as you may have seen with quite a few of the players, but at least it is something. So it is a successful example of, let's say, technology transfer into a market. The maintenance of that is another story. Second thing, Galileo satellite navigation, slightly different situation. There was a GPS satellite system done by the US. And the US were making it available some degree of lower quality for everybody. Quality. And Europe decided we want to be sovereign, we want to be, and also have something like this, and they came up with Galileo. It's a younger system, so technology-wise, it's more refined and so on. And at some point in time, there had been the political scenario where maybe this should be coming in a public-private partnership between state and private investors. That was about the time in 2005, 2007, so on. The public-private partnership model did not work out. Why should we spend a lot of money into something that already exists? And I would say, fortunately, the European Union, European Commission made the decision, we want to have the system we need for sovereignty. There was quite a bit of even small scandals about why so much money is spent for technologies that already exists. But in the end, it was decided this is important and we do it. And then we had it for quite a few years. You may have noticed that your smartphones have not only GPS, but also Galileo modules, even though everybody usually talks about GPS, but there is these other infrastructures. There are also infrastructures, by the way, from China and Russia under the specific names and so on. And the reward for that, for the strategic decision, came about 10 years later when there was a US president whose name we may want to forget, but anyway, you may remember it. And he decided that maybe if Europe doesn't behave like the US want, we're going to switch off GPS. That was basically what he said. And he fully understood that there was Galileo. And at that was the moment where, of course, it would have been inconvenient to have GPS switched off, but it wouldn't have been that degree of disaster that it could have been if we hadn't had that Galileo infrastructure. So from that point of view, let's say long-term investment, even when it's unpopular, into sovereignty can pay off. And that's a very good, successful example. It was expensive, I can tell you. So another example, and that comes close to what I just described already, privacy-preserving attribute-based credentials is a very important technology to make sure that you can authenticate yourself on the internet, but you don't need to give away too much of yourself. And technologies behind that are blind signatures and zero-knowledge systems, and the respective research has been done in Europe, in the Netherlands, in Switzerland, and where's now an IPR ownership of these technologies? So I think of some of them. It is with an IBM and it is with Microsoft, because Microsoft bought some of the Dutch efforts and the efforts in Switzerland were done by IBM. I mean, still good technologies. But this is definitely a lot of money, European money went into research that is now exploited commercially or can be exploited commercially, not so much by European companies. There are some reasonably conditions on that one, and the project that Mirek was mentioning that we were involved with was trying to build an infrastructure on top of that, like an architecture where you at least are not bound on a monopoly situation with one of these providers. But I would say we could have been more successful in Europe on these kind of things. Again, these are 3 examples. I'm sure the other panelists will have further examples, but they should show us sometimes Europe is successful and sometimes maybe not so much, and we need to be careful. Next thing on where do we stand with regard to regulation and consistency in regulation. There's 2 draft regulations at the moment happening and are happening in Brussels. There are many more regulations happening in Brussels, but these are 2 that I wanted to point out to you because I think they are important. There is a regulation on a so-called digital wallet. Some of you may remember EIDAS, that is a European identity regulation that exists since 2014 and allows European digital signatures and so on. It didn't take off very much because so far not so many people needed signatures, but to some degree it established an infrastructure. Now the new idea was, and I think that it was a nice idea by the Commission, to say in principle, when we have all of these transactions happening with our smartphones and with digital, and we need to have a digital wallet that users should have, where they can put in their credentials, credit card numbers, any kind of things that show how old they are, all of these identifiers, and they should be well available for European citizens. And it says the user shall be in full control of the European digital identity wallet, which is a good statement. It's a very strong statement because at the same time the regulation says member states should make this available in the next 2 years, which I think is a very ambitious goal. Not to say ambitious because not done, but I think it's a good idea because it's a ambition. And we have to see how it works. Obviously, the full control by users is necessary. There's no full trust. So far so good, and work, but ambition, which is good. So now there is something which I tend to call chat control regulation. Officially, it comes under a goal in combating child sexual abuse, which of course is a very bad crime and is something that we need to fight again. But some people in the Commission have the feeling that they can fight child abuse by listening in to mobile phones, by breaking encryption, and by putting into the mobile phones some software that reports what's happening in the mobile phones, basically looking into phones and see if there's the wrong pictures that shouldn't be in the phone that is being reported. So I would say, yes, we need to combat child crime clearly, but by weaning the security of the devices that we certainly need for many, many things is the wrong approach. It's also the to help those children who are exploited and who are in crime and in trouble, because they need trustworthy channels to contact people who can help them. If they don't have any trustworthy channel anymore, they're even in a worse situation than before. So what you find in this draft regulation, indirectly, not to read between the lines, but you see the idea is restrictions on encryption. So that mean that you would not be able to have an protected chat anymore with any other people, because somebody wants to look into see whether you're doing something in your chat that maybe they would not like to have, or something which is called client-side scanning, which means that somebody looks into your phone and if they find something that shouldn't be there, and it gets reported to the police. Now, you may or may not like that. You see what my position is really. And just think about, at the same time, we want to take the wallet out of your mobile phone. That should be safe to have your credentials. That should be safe to give your money. Obviously, there's a problem. So, and the good thing in Europe is we can discuss these things openly. And we need to make sure that our politicians understand. But there is work to be done. So now we come to, let's say, the part of advertisement session of this talk, and that is about a new European initiative and for cybersecurity excellence. As some of you may know, there is a European entity for cybersecurity called ENISA. And that one exists for quite some time, but it's not very large, and for several reasons, including the location of the entity, there was a reason to say, let's start a new initiative. And now we're coming into a research program with regard to that, because the European Commission said, actually, maybe it's a good idea when we want to have this new center to have 4 projects try out and be the guinea pigs, be the test projects for what such a European cybersecurity excellence center can actually do and how to make things better, to gather experience and to later report that so that we get a better scenario here in future, and that the center needs and knows what it needs to do. So the 4 pilots actually are are called ECHO, Concordia, Sparta, and Cybersecurity for Europe. I'm going to tell you quite a bit about Cybersecurity for Europe because that is the one that we are coordinating in Frankfurt. George, for example, who speak after me, is involved with ECHO, so we have a number of these pilots also represented here thanks to the wise invitations that the organizers of the conference made. So what is the idea of these networks, and which basically have, let's say, 160 partners? Quite a bit of money was spent. And here you see one of these slides on what is the idea to improve. So research and innovation, and especially research on cybersecurity stuff in Europe is actually not so bad. There's quite a bit and good stuff there. Vivek has described it already. And transfer into as a team, for example. ABC, for example, there. So, and what needs to be improved? And you see some of these green things there, or needs to be preserved. And these are areas where this needs to happen. So, and diversity and ethics, acceptance of risks and management of risks, and how we can make use of all the technology in areas. This network of competence centers, which actually is not only for European or one European center, but also a network of organizations within and all of the member states is there. This is the trial from Cybersec for Europe, and you see people spread over quite a few areas in Europe. 43 members and in 22 countries, 20 of them European Union membership, some of them elsewhere. I have to apologize. When we tried to build this consortium, we didn't find anybody in Poland, and even though we tried, basically quite a few good organizations in Poland were already given to other consortia, and everything happened in quite some hectic. But we're trying to make up for that. This is an example on what kind of stakeholders do you actually have in cybersecurity. So you have obviously system developers, you have industry investors, you have small and medium enterprises, which are very often the drivers of innovation, but don't have enough support. And then you have the general public, who is obviously affected by quite a few of these things. And you have the research community and public administration, and somewhere in between you have standardization bodies who are very influential in the world. So trying to make them work together is important. And this is a picture that you will see quite often now during the rest of this talk, because it describes to some degree areas in which cybersecurity is trying to do. And something like governance, design, and quality. So how do you organize such a center to make sure specific situation of security, and you've seen the delicate questions that we have, and something like that. Then there is something like this question from research and innovation to industry. So how do we make sure that research is applied and that research is fulfilling what is needed? Education, certification, and standardization is important, and also in some relation to it. And then communication and community building, how to make sure that people actually discuss and communicate about these kind of things, and that is actually then helping. So these are the 4 big areas. And here you see the whole thing a little bit smaller, with basically each of these boxes is one of so-called work packages, like they're called in European Union projects. And we're now going to take a look at a few of them in more detail. And we start with governance, design, and pilot, because it is, let's say, the most political thing. And what have we been doing in Cybersec for You? We took a look at what are the stakeholders actually interested in. So we made some questionnaires and interviewed people on what they like, what would they expect. We also took a look at how does governance practice work in European organizations. There's quite a few European organizations, of course. Some of them are working nicely, some of them maybe not so much. An important question for us was this top-down, bottom-up thing. And like an academic administration, obviously. Government, probably has also civil society. Hopefully, we consider that very important. So based on that, we designed, and we have a number of deliverables, whenever you find it here, the document that you can actually download from the Cybersec for Europe website on governance structure. And one of our most important points was for us, enable bottom-up advice and community-driven capability. Basically make sure that people can meet and that they can tell the higher people who are somehow higher in the hierarchy on what they think to do. We have tried that out in a number of European countries, and we've learned quite a bit, sometimes the hard way. And this is, let's say, the summary essential element that we think that we try to tell every politician to make sure that, for example, when we set up the new center, that this is something working. And the first thing is top-down and bottom-up structure is important, because what you have in cybersecurity, maybe you experience it yourself. There's usually always something that is not perfect, and something that is not perfect. When you go to tell that to people, at the same time, very often ask something about your own weaknesses, because probably you're maybe responsible for some of these things that are going wrong, or at least you're involved. So if you go to somebody and say something is wrong, you take the risk that somebody will say it's your fault. If management does exactly that, so the point is basically to make sure that people who are knowing that something is wrong can report to people who make decisions and say something is wrong here, we need to improve that. And it must be secured in some way. They must be assured that they don't get trouble for that, that they're candid and open. And that is a not trivial governance structure to have, because you enable people that they can report. They need to have whistleblower facilities and all of that. Also, and that's one thing that we consider to be important, is what we call secured participation. You need to have committees which are not just collected because somebody higher up says, I want to have a few people to talk to and to talk with me. And next time I'll invite different people. It's better to say there is a committee. And the people on the committee are going to be invited next time also, even if they bring messages that maybe the top people don't like in a proper parliament or so. If the government doesn't like what the parliamentarians say, they should still be able to come to the next parliament. It's not just they should be uninvited because they're bringing the nice messages. And especially in cybersecurity, that is important. Otherwise, people will not. So this is, in a nutshell, the outcome of this. It is important to say, and it's important to implement, and we hope that it will be implemented. By the way, meanwhile, this European Cybersecurity Competence Center has been established partly in Bucharest. Actually, it's going to sit. The executive director is not yet there, but there is some bond from member states. So things are developing somehow. Next thing, and I think I need to speed up a bit probably. And we started 15 or 9:50 we started. Okay, so I'll be over then in a few minutes. And another example here on how we thought we can do the technology transfer. We said, okay, of course, we need to, in such a center, collect what is the most up-to-date research in the area. And that's what you see in the Blueprint Design Common Research thing. But very often research is not applied. And so we thought we should, on top of that, also ask, and that's what you see here under demonstration cases, ask application area people who may know that they need security, who have the feelings that they need security, to come up with their requirement and say, we need the following. And then we decided, okay, we try to make them meet. So they had some discussions. Some of them were quite heated on what is on offer, what do they need, how can this work. Sometimes, let's say, that led to some agreement on what one can do. And that was, let's say, the low-hanging fruit. And that led to some demonstration cases that you can. But as important also is to say, where is data? Where is not what people need covered by a research strategy or by a development strategy? And that's what we thought would go into a research and development roadmap. So a research and development roadmap coming out of a dialogue, not just coming out of a singular decision point. And that's then 7 areas in red and purple are the application areas and where we've been working. They were chosen basically from those people who said, yes, we're willing to work with you and we're willing to tell you something and we're willing to openly speak. There could have been other important areas, but these were the 7 that we got. And you see banking, you see higher education, you see maritime transport and smart cities, supply chains, so basically manufacturing over several roads, incident reporting and medical data exchange. And all of the red ones have a relation to Internet of Things, which I thought is important given what we see here also in the other tracks of the conference with robotics and all of the other things. And ones are more general stuff, and the other is obviously somewhere in between, because you see quite a few Internet of Things like things in the medical area and some not. What you see then, so these are the application demonstrators that are happening. You see some results here, for example, this architecture and blocks and some analysis of privacy regulation. And you see some software assets that were identified. And again, if you're interested in whatever kind of security questions on these application areas, you can take a look at what that means. Some of them are just digital signature something. Some of them are audit requirements. All kinds of details exist. let's have a look at this, because that is what is the research roadmap that came out of the whole exercise here, in terms of what are the areas where we have a feeling additional research is needed. And that was actually something that was done with all of the pilots together. That's why you see the purple in green now, because that was how all the pilots together did this. You see something with governance capacity building, and you see some stuff on trustworthy ecosystems of systems. Something on work, but then also something on disruptive and emerging developments where we are seeing something new is happening. Secure quantum technology, secure AI systems, personalized privacy and protection. So that was this area. Now, on skills and capability building and open tools and standardization, all quite important things for implementation. I probably need to speed up a bit. Quite a few on analysis in education. And the interesting point was, there is actually a reasonable education level in many places in Europe with regard to core security. So if you want to get a cryptography course, that is usually not so difficult to get. What is extremely difficult to find is security courses or education in the area of applications. So let's say you are a bakery manager, or let's say you are a manager in maybe a shipping company, and then you want to see what security is needed in your domain, like how do you make sure that ships are not misdirected or whatever. That is actually difficult to have, and we need much more in Europe on this kind of binding application with core security. That's what we found out in some surveys. The next thing, where I think we were quite successful also together with some other pilots, is giving tools, and so that people can test tools for testing for two reasons. One thing is for companies who develop something that they can test what they have, and also for people to check their own operation cyber rages to try out what is going to happen. Both of that was happening. And with regard to the tools, Masaryk University in Czech Republic was one of the leading partners there. Our aim was to say we want to make these tools available open source so that everybody can use them, especially also small and medium enterprises can make use of them. Some other pilots made some other priorities and said we want to do high risks, high security stuff for people who have a security qualification in military also. Our idea was to do this. Next thing, if some of you are closer involved in certification, there is already quite a bit of work going on in trying to find out how secure certain systems are. There are reports about that. Some of them are quite complex. And trying to help people with automatic reading of that is something that, again, was happening in such a tool here that we called SecCerts. If you wonder why this is useful, well, when you try to find a chip for whatever kind of digitalization effort or access control effort, loading which chips are working good for what is actually quite a bit of an effort. So that was useful. Standardization is an important point. Actually, Europe is reasonably strong represented in international standardization on security, but that needs to be maintained. And this committee that maybe you've seen about is doing standards like ISD 27001 or 20, and that is in security management standard, or 24760 was the identity management standard, 29100 for data protection. That is reasonably influenced by Europe, but of course we need to keep up on that. So last but not least, the number of events. That was easy always in the COVID times, as you can imagine. And it is clear that we learned also, it's good to have electronic events when you cannot have anything else, but it's important that people can really meet and to discuss. So we had a number of them virtual, a number of them before in Toulouse. We tried to get people together with the other pilots, all kinds of different people. Maybe as very important, I should mention Wojciech Wiworowski, the European Data Protection Supervisor, who was very kindly often helping us with this kind of discussions, because data protection is important for cybersecurity. And so that was useful. Basically, this is to advertise this. Summit event, 1st and 2nd of December in Brussels. Access is free. We will also try to make some hybrid access available. Take a look at that website and watch that space. I can only recommend to you, it should become interesting. The program is being shaped at the moment. I can only recommend that to put it into your calendar. This is a number of deliverables, but again, you will see the slides later. You can pick and then see what is interesting for you to read. This is one of the most recent pages of the Competence Center, which is now somehow coming up. And well, this is the summary and outlook how we see ourselves and say we're actually a community that is vibrant, Now we need to make sure that we can transfer it into this competence center. That will be an interesting thing also for us to discuss. Now, let's put that against my original slide here with regard to where do we need to go and where are we and what have we achieved compared to what still needs to be done. So I think we have created quite a bit of discussion that these civilizational values, as I tend to call them, and that data protection and protection of the individual is not lost in security. That is something where at least we put that, and let's say, to the core of the discussion to some degree. Better understanding systems and their security. For some areas we did that. You saw some contributions how to better read certifications, but much more work will be needed in this area. That is for sure. And also, it's not just about being aware here and keeping it. It needs to more effort simply needs to be done on that one. More European collaboration that is working, but it needs to be kept up. It should not be forgotten. And transfer from technology knowledge to operation. Honestly, the answer that I have to give you is Cybersec for Europe exists for 3.5 years. In 3.5 years, you cannot fully see what's going on. There are some promising developments with regard to this, like, for example, the open source tools, but we will only in a few years see whether we have been successful here. At the moment, we can only keep up the effort, but at least we see some promising developments. Yeah, more consistent regulation, that is a continuous task. An example that I brought to you is still in flux, and all of us, basically, I would say, are in the mandate to make sure that this is going to happen. And that from that point of view, I can tell you, this is a process. We're in the middle of it. I think we did some improvements, but our joint discussion on all of this is actually important to make more progress. And then last but not least, a little bit of advertising. If you're interested in some of the work, these are some further links. I understand the slides will be made available. Otherwise, approach me, and then you can read some more details about Cybersec for Europe. But that is basically my conclusion for the further discussion. And thanks a lot for your patience.
Thanks a lot. But if there are some questions immediately, then maybe we take a chance to ask Kai or some remarks.
Question, I'm open. Okay, Poznań University of Technology, Paweł Śniatawa. Yes, it works. So question that because initiative regarding the putting together people who are working in this topic, are you open in your consortium also for the new entities from Poland, for example, because I thought that the map was empty about Poland.
The map was empty about Poland. That was what we said when we built it. The point is the consortium and funding is coming to an end at the end of the year. So of course we're happy to work with further people, but we have basically only to offer the collaboration of the people, and what we need to transfer into is this new European Cybersecurity Competence Center and its national networks. So, for example, what we're absolutely open is, and what we're doing at the moment, we're trying to invite all the National Competence Center people to some events before the end of the year and to transfer some of the knowledge. And of course, the consortium will also exist to have further discussions, and some collaboration will continue. But in principle, our job is to enable the European Union organization collaboration. But definitely we can see how that works, and we're very happy to have more exposure. We have meanwhile actually a good contact, for example, to the NCC in Poland with Katarzyna, that you may know. But definitely there is, I mean, that's also why this event exists on 1st and 2nd.
Actually, my question was not to sharing money, but rather sharing knowledge. So thank you. You are open for it.
Definitely. That is the idea of it.
Okay. My immediate remark is maybe it was hidden a little bit. Was as a keynote, you said I'm not that well careful about saying something, but what I have learned from these pictures are two sides. One is what need to be done, where we are, and we have some small successes. But my impression is that think about the overall situation, global situation. So we have a situation that we there are some leading countries that did a lot of contribution, as I made a lot of mistakes, but learning by mistakes is the best way to progress. And if we compare with the rest of the world, we got for instance, United States was a leader in each part of technology. In security, we see that there's not only competence in Europe, but also we sometimes we do it in a very good way, sometimes not. We have good and bad examples, but there is a chance. So we also make mistakes, and now the problem is to make reality in each aspect. So you've got some examples that we are trying to make real, and today with the discussion is maybe you have bad or good observations, and you're free to say it openly how it should be done better. Okay.
Yes, I agree. I mean, the point is that when you have an open discussion, sometimes things look worse than they actually are, because of course propaganda, and we do everything perfectly, sometimes works for some time. And from that point of view, we have a lot of work to do and in front of us. But indeed, we have done some progress. And from that point of view, we're under pressure, but we're not in a disaster. And that will stay like that anyway for all the time. Because successful. Under pressure discussions. I think it's even a very radical question and answers. And the second part of the session is with our guest. So I think that it will be not convenient to sit here in front of the screen, but we are the guests from Estonia, from Bulgaria, and of course Kai from Germany, and presenting the point of view of this on these topics. So, but I think you're coming from Estonia. It's something like this. It's our style. It's amazing. It's a small country. What was the contribution to cybersecurity? Also, if we start thinking about mistakes, so then no progress without mistakes. So, the floor is yours, and please share what your experience is.
So I have only 3 slides, so I don't take much of your time. I'm just presenting how we see cybersecurity in Estonia. But first of all, let me thank all the organizers setting up this beautiful and great event. And most of all, I'm happy to be the southern part of Europe, because north part we experienced the 20-degree downside last time. It's so beautiful to sit and drink by the river. So I'm very happy to be here. But about cybersecurity, I'd like to see that at the moment I'm working in robotics and coming to company this year. I want to check it out, just go to YouTube. Pretty good stuff, I would say. But running cybersecurity, national director of cybersecurity. So cybersecurity topics came to my table, and I had to deal with everything and to get the understanding what is the situation in the world, what is the situation, and what to do with challenges. So an overview from the national cybersecurity perspective, but what is the situation, how the challenges, and what might be the solutions, so where at least we see the solutions are. So first of all, this picture represents the real Estonian cyberspace, at least what the government controls, or what and I started to use this picture with and the first or second brief I read, the defense minister said that, you know, what is the situation, but we don't really get it. So can we put the situation on the map, like in the military? So how to do that, because how to put the whole internet in, but then develop this visualization tool so we can actually monitor the connectivities in Estonia, that is the secure. So, we have created a secure layer on top of the internet, so we can use all government services over that, private services, entities who are part of the consortium. So this is the way how we actually make our cyberspace secure enough, I would say. We have 3,000 different network with systems connected. So different members from the government sector, private sector, and third sector as well. And this map represents basically the during the 4 days. And what it basically says is that everything interconnected. When we started to ask the questions in the government that we need more resources in cybersecurity to keep the system safe, or keep the system safe, then of course the Prime Minister asked right away that can we kind of like differentiate different segments so we can say that we can secure the most important ones. But this picture is representing that we are not talking about one system or 2 systems or 3 systems, but system of systems. Everything is connected. So you can consider it like a human body. So you think that one part of your body is more important to another. No, maybe head is more important because brain is there, and maybe one finger or toenail is not so important. But at the end of the day, you have to deal with your whole body. And when it comes to the security, I must say that these days it's really comparable to human body, because you can simply not avoid incidents from happening, but you have to be ready to deal with them. But of course, just like with human body, you can keep yourself in shape, you can exercise, you can eat healthy food. The same way with cyber, you can do all these things: certifications, auditing, security by design, all these things. At the end of the day, the system is so complex that you have to great capabilities to deal with these. Just like the sector, you have hospitals, you have first aid. So in cyber, the situation is the same. You need quick reaction capabilities in order to secure the cyber body. How does the future look like? With the cybersecurity policy this year in Estonia, and the 4 things that are probably, we think, not the most important ones, but at least the aspects that we have to consider. So first of all, that we recognize that there is an immense pressure to innovate rapidly. So everybody is talking about the new IT-based solutions, new applications. Let's create new one. Let's throw away the old ones. Let's take new systems, new ways to operate. But often we don't pay so much attention to the security, especially when a startup. Your first goal is to make money to get the client base. You have to have the first or the minimum viable product. You want to implement everything. Let's be honest. This happens when to cybersecurity, and suddenly they find themselves being a global service provider, and then they have to deal with cybersecurity for sure, because sooner or later they're going to I think they have to deal with it. So in different sectors, that is these days that not IT company. Every company who uses IT is basically an IT company. And the IT company. So so much cyber. But so we have spent a lot government sector, but also private sector and other sectors. I think when we look at the latest or last 2 year incidents, so the most significant the soil that happened in Europe, everyone affected basically big corporations, companies, security companies, cybersecurity companies, national security agencies, everybody gets affected. But so where I also very ransomware attack in medical system. So basically, they have a new system from scratch, and it cost them, if I remember right, something like 500 million euros to build everything again from scratch. So these are the vulnerabilities there. Second, increasing dependence on service provider. So when you use cloud service, or if you use telecommunication service, so these services are these days not anymore in your jurisdiction. They are provided from somewhere else. So if you buy, for example, Chinese technology, you don't buy it for yourself. You actually are buying service. So the technology provider provides the service afterwards. So they will get the information, they will analyze that, they will certainly get a very good overview what you have or what you don't have. Or if you buy directly cloud-based services that you use, if it's a office software or something else, you depend on the company who is located elsewhere. So the jurisdiction is different. You can't go there and apply your rules. The government who is where the company is located applies their rules. So whether or not creates a security problem, certainly it creates. So that's a big question. Because to be efficient, we want to be efficient, but we cannot do much in that. So the thing we can do is evaluate the trustworthiness and security of the company or how they behave, and according to that, you can pick the for example. In terms of the cyber threat picture, it has gone really bad, and of course, the war in Ukraine shows as well. Say the whole attacks against different countries. But recognized already before the war in Ukraine, situation gets worse, but I will say that it's not going better in the future. But we want to secure information in Europe, and we just have to think that how to implement the measures all together. And it's not only in Europe, but globally, at least among the like-minded nations. And the first aspect is that the decision making has moved to, at least for us, used to be a national security question, but these days now, if we really want to solve the problems, we need to do it together among like-minded countries. So for us, the best format is EU at the moment, but of course NATO as well, and maybe other formats, but it creates other chances. Different working groups, highly homework in order to represent their views there. You have to have really good understanding what kind of capabilities from a country. So that is feasible to do. You know, considering all the knowledge and capabilities you have. So it's not so easy to be part of the bigger forum, because then you have to understand yourself first, well, you have to understand others, and then to come to the common conclusion. That's not easy process. Very good example is the 5G security policy that was done in Europe. It took actually more than a year just to agree a common understanding and find a way how to deal with this problem. So in process, we need highly skilled people in that way. And last slide, so back to you. The governance, which we get to make better knowledge and get better knowledge. But basically, we need to understand how to govern the whole area, because we have the challenges that we have today, how to govern, how to change information, specifically when it's related to national security, how to change that, how to do it together, and also how to do it nationally. Basically means that you really have to innovate in the field of governance, think it through, create the concept how it should be organized, and then to put it into the legislation. Because without legislation and regulation, nothing will be implemented. And so the question is how to develop concepts quickly and how to change the laws and regulations we have. Second part, knowledge. You really know what is where this happens. So do we know what's going to happen after a couple of years in cybersecurity field? Can we predict the future? These are questions that all governments have. If we can create knowledge and systems how to predict the future better, that's also what are the risks, what are acceptable, what is acceptable, what is not, what is suitable for us in our country to implement or in our organization. These are the big questions. At the moment, all stakeholders in private sector, public sector, they have to think about that, because the government cannot provide this kind of information. Of course, we have agencies, but you have to consider technological aspects, also the trends, global trends, regional trends, other countries' interests, new technologies that will appear, etc., etc. We need much better analysis and knowledge that we have at the moment. And last aspect, there's we don't have many in that sector, and we cannot simply do anything. There are different solutions that could be implemented in organization at big cost. If you don't implement that, then we cannot protect ourselves. What we had was that we did the analysis 2 years ago. We saw that the threat picture goes worse. So government for more resources in cyber, and we were able to get it right before the war started. So we were able to implement certain measures, and once we did it, of course, we got hit by Russian hackers. So very often, if you don't do that, also, that was mentioned by Kyle, cybersecurity. Is not aware that policies that much countries actually for cyber. There's the dollars have to do that, but one thing we could is to calculate how big is the percentage for cybersecurity to contain our ICT budget. The average unit is at the country without this analysis. We can see numbers that want to go. The telecommunication companies can spend much more. Regulation that we have spent, they have to spend at least 15% of the budget to cyber. So I was saying that the last paper, that's my final point. We can do it, yes, better governance, but resources to defend nothing will come properly. So, the last very big important thing in Europe is to agree that at least 30% from ICT budget to cybersecurity. Just the same way as we have agreed in NATO that we put 2% of GDP to the national defense. Methodology here, you know, to make things better. That's what
we clearly see why Estonia is so successful in realizing these threats and challenges. Okay, I propose just to invite George to the table, and well, we are just jumping from the north to south to Sofia, one of the most beautiful Roman cities in Europe.
Okay.
First, I want to apologize immediately after the panel. I leave to the airport because I will be in Brussels this evening, and there is a big NATO conference on communications and information agency just after the pandemic. So a lot of plans and especially after the Ukraine lessons learned. And actually, I mentioned that because partially for also to not only cyber resilience, I put on purpose the title, but also I will refer to the evolution of cyber defense in general. So, yeah, I come from Bulgaria, Sofia. Our institute is there for more than 20 years, Central Eastern Europe, on software quality, but we have to partner with the Canadian University Software Engineering Institute and the third, the regional center there. And part of this partnership related to cyber resilience, what is, I believe that some of you here, those are students from the as well. Designing the system so that they are not totally cyber secure by design, but so yeah, the first slide. Cybersecurity lab, and just how with security intelligence. The cybersecurity certification group of cybersecurity certification schemes implementing CyberAct, but also member of the technical committee at ETSI, the technical committee cyber, and the new one that was also established against security. First, let me remind you something, because yesterday, maybe every day, independence of our society. Start with this quote from Mark Anderson. Maybe you know, some of you know the name. That's the first, which later. And search engine. So 2011 said that software is eating the world. Well, what he meant by that was most of the digitalized. Example he gave like Uber, Facebook, Alibaba. So those are like Uber is the largest transportation company in the world without possessing any single piece of hardware. So it's all the service, digital service. Facebook is the largest media, whatever, provider without so all is that digital service. So it depends on that. He said, okay, software is eating the business the way we live, but back in 2000, no, sorry, yeah, 2016, it's okay. Okay, thank you. 2016, software is not only hitting the world, but it's already programmed. Not only due to technology, but some system like but also the new computation power, which is the quantum computing and other stuff. So it's it's changing a little bit the software and IT systems in our life. They think at first, and this is not a threat. We have to learn how to use that. But then the point, 2018, for the first time, the economic forum actually realized based on this digital dependency. Of course, that we need to look at the resources, the IT resources, software systems through the world now, how to make them resilient and protect them against the cyber attacks or malfunctions. We used to say that these problems, they come with mainly with the bad guys, hackers. But actually, when I teach also my students in the software engineering course, I ask them, okay, who is responsible? Who is the main threat to our software and IT systems? And these are the suspect organized attacks, and I said, no, it's you, because you systems like that, so that there are vulnerabilities, they have weaknesses that could be exploited, but also they could have malfunctions, not necessarily with the used or utilized by malicious actors, and in our life as well. So therefore, considering all these threats and the risks that come out of dependence in general, put as a priority, a third priority for the after the better migration. That the problem of our global society, but building resilience to large-scale cyber attacks failure. Later on, that evolved actually during the pandemic. It was the conclusion, and I believe that you witnessed all that, one of the most increasing risks and threats and disrupting events actually that comes to our society. The pandemic that was realized, only the trade and the education, but also the business. Then cybersecurity became maybe the cyber criminals took the most advantage out of this. But actually, this year, actually, to so-called cyber resilience pledge that was initiated by, again, the World Economic Forum. The total focus of power society towards resilience. Actually, what is resilience? Cybersecurity, sustainability, mix even this terminology like resilience and sustainability. Sustainability, that's very well known from our human or let's say biological world. It's the resilience of the species. It's animals or organisms that could adapt to the new situation, survive eventually, and evolve and recover to the new normal. After the pandemic, we speak about the new normal thing as well. So this is the resilience. How to achieve that in a digital space. So I was for a while, like 2014, 2019, National Cybersecurity Coordinator for government. So my duty was to do the national cybersecurity strategy. And since I believe security is just part of the story, insisting on the title of the National Strategy, Cyber Resilient Bulgaria 2020. So the first, the resilience, we define the resilience like these three layers. First of all, the basic threats of the basic compromises that can the data leak and so on, the classical information security discipline. All that work is a people. This is the people. So these are the things that we know. So the something that we define like this is cyber security. Something that we just like either cyber attacks, but APT, advanced persistent threats groups, and so on. So it is defined like known unknown. So it's a known combination of known things. We still have known stuff. So this is the security. If we could detect something, then it means that we could evaluate. And then we come to the point of unknown. So unknown threats. So more than 0-day attacks. We have unknown vulnerabilities in the new system. That's especially valid with a more intelligent system like it. So you can these steps. This is basic assets. This is not a lecture. That I will skip it because there are more important things that all should apply to the basic type of asset that we use in our IT systems. This means people, information, technology, and facility. But we have to add to that one important thing, the external dependencies of our business, our systems. And I will focus on this last because that's the new trend also in the development of the European requirements and the also let's say this level of measures and we could define the classical capability maturity models first about the software improvement or positive software. The third sector, they developed a resilience management model, which is exactly following theirs maturity level. And then we can define cyber maturity of a company, organization, nation, at various different levels. And this is how also we define the phases or the stage of national development from cybersecurity to cyber resilience. To translate or to define resilience is also the security function or protect and then sustain the basic operations and the activities of your organization. Sustainment means continue service business, continue plus recovery. Forget about this recovery coming back to the normal life. So that's not the resilience part, but we have to consider also the complexity because presentations like Kai, we saw the Estonian space. So how this digital world and the so-called cyber terrain or cyberspace is interconnected, interdependent. So we have to consider not only the network level, the physical level, application level, but also the logical network. So the applications that they communicate each other, the systems, and this is my favorite topic as well. So in the complex world, we have the different systems that interoperate, and depending on their interoperability, the system that the behavioral system of systems is not just the sum of the behavioral features of the system. So it's a new organism, and this is our society. consider also this multi-sector or sectoral dependencies, not only the layers, the physical layers, then we know that majority of the hybrid attacks now are against the most critical infrastructure. The way I define it, that this is the human brain. Or the human brain. So when we consider this complexity of the interoperability and systems approach, we also consider these dependencies, and it was mentioned again, supply chain. Actually, we have to look more carefully about that definition. It's not the supply chain, it's the value chain, which is the important one. The supply chain is only type of value chain that we have. And also, we consider this value chain approach, we have to keep in mind that it's some type of model. Actually, that to this, I have a laser. So, in addition to the line of supply chain, so demand, supply, logistics, and so on, we have all these, I mentioned before, external dependencies or enablers of the supply chain. And actually, the real threats, as I put the real threats, they are hidden in this enablers part. So the upper part. So if we consider the real model that we also use, and on purpose I put SME, small company here, because the direct supply chain, which is going to supply the demand side, but risk for so they come here, the external, because we can imagine that this is assembly of a computer. So you can go back to the different element suppliers here. And this is, by the way, the definition of the requirements of the new Cyber Resilience Act, which I will mention, of the European Union. The requirements of certification or audits of these different components that come in the integrated system, but we pay too little attention to that external dependencies. And actually, these external dependencies, they hide. They are like or the six jumps between them. Actually, with the social or with the connected society, digital connected society, the coefficient is already 3 something. So each people are connected between them. So we have to consider the 6 degrees of separation and the cyber risks which are there. And here to prove that this concept, we have to remember but actually it's not. It doesn't require any ransom. The account that was given there, the Bitcoin, the damage was very big, especially exactly and by the way, if you don't recall, but the NotPetya as an attack started exactly in Ukraine, in Kiev, by a small company that was developing for connectivity software, reporting software. So this is the last slide. Actually, the lessons coming from these 2 areas, like resilience, also the importance of supply chain dependency. This is in the focus of European policies and strategies development and particular activities. So that started with the digital single market, of course. But then later on, of course, we had this the privacy, GDPR, and so on. But then that evolved with the essential services, or so-called technical services. The structural definition, which is much closer to the one in US by this, and so 16 sectors. So, then essential services or entities takeover plus 6 important. Of course, the one development actually, the last draft was published after one consultation, cyber resilience, which is exactly focusing on the supply chain resilience, the requirements on that, and this is a combination of the cyber first 2019 already, not these new functions, but the coordinating the cybersecurity certification schemes. I do that certifications and the business. It's not so this is embedded already in the European requirements and regulation, which is the law, Cyber Act, but the business is exactly the standard to ensure the interoperability based on trust, based on standardized devices, on that standard requirement, and this is especially of the supply chain. Last but not least, it was mentioned it is coordinated communities for the coordinated communication that is in power already, defining the establishment of the coordination center in Bucharest, about the research and capacity development as it is defined. Then you have these national communities, and now just request so we were part of one of these. It's more organization, but competence center related with the engineering things or technical aspects of the systems in a complex environment, especially multi-sectoral environment. And then the cyber ranges that are federated, specialized cyber ranges, not only for training, education, but for testing the resilience as well. So combination of technical, external systems, connectivity, and so on. The important thing is that we try and pilot already, because the project is also till the end, I think February, like all the other 3 pilots. I was mentioning, but to sustain after that, so based on the, let's say, the Bulgarian local network, we established a kind of local hub, which is served, and we are already negotiating as a competence community as well. With this, I would thank you and open to questions.
I would like to invite Pavel Shnetara, a few thoughts about education. I hope you have questions at the end. Okay.
Good. Thank you. As Chairman said, I was asked to speed up a little bit, so I will try to do my best. Usually, I talk too much. So I was asked to present some issues related to cybersecurity from the university perspective, and especially from the European university perspective. The first position, of course, I'm of technology, but we are also a leader of one of those European universities. In this case, is a UNIS University. I will show you a little bit about the university later. And also, I have to admit the same as my colleagues who talked here previously. I also have as a member of the advisor for Prime Minister about topics of digitalization. legislation, and I have to confirm that it is a problem about the legislation process. How long does it take? Not mention about money, which should be, and it's not assigned from the government level to academia and other institution involved in the cybersecurity issues. So the logical structure of my presentation is the first part will show that really there is an issue, and we have to take care about the cybersecurity, which is obviously but some statistics. And next about the education, which was, as I said, my main topic of the presentation. And finally, actually two examples from my backyard. I'm from my university. So the first one, I took a screenshot from there was Saturday, I guess, around midday at noon. So you see that it's really a problem. We at that day we had in the middle of the day we had already 14 all in the middle between 14 and 15,000 hackers attacks on Saturday. You can see that sometimes it is much more. So here in July it was almost 120 million of such attacks, and it is hackers. They don't have borders. They don't feel borders. They are across everywhere. And at that day, the top malware types, as you see, it was adware, phishing, backdoors. Top target industries. I was surprised actually that education is still on the top. Healthcare and government institutions. All over the world. So Bob, that is the most popular. Next, crypto market in the top. And again, banking, well, obvious. And I will also give some information about the banking. So it is how it is all over the world. If we go to the particular countries, the top targeted countries, as you see on the right side, it's over there. Yes, it's not Poland, it's Indonesia. It says on the flag it's flipped. You can compare our country, one of the most risky countries of all the United States, that we can compare. Well, I don't know how to comment it, whether we are in a good shape as a Poland compared to the United States. It's of course better than in the statistics. And about the population who suffer most. Again, research education, probably it's because there are a lot of data which can be useful for hackers for the further use, like names, some ID numbers, and so on, and so on. Important things. You can heard story about the hackers who just went into your car and your car cannot stop. It can be even danger if it goes inside your body. You have some, devices inside, and something happened to it. So it looks like that, and what you have to be aware, but it's obvious that exe files are always danger. But again, surprise for me was about PDF. I used to think that PDF is safe. Don't worry about PDF. Whereas you see, it is the second position in terms of the dangerous things. Well, it's how it is. So top, actually 10 or 5, I don't know. We'll see. Ransomware. It's very popular, and it's very old approach. But it looks from the hacker's point of view is still very effective. And how to protect it? There's a special actually website with the details description how to protect your site, at least how to try to protect it, some best practices. So I will be the website over there. And Here you see how much the money that they took. They had how much it increased year to year. Because of the pandemic, spent a lot of time at home, so home offices, and again, the rate of the attacks increased. So you can see the reason, the risk factors, which is by sitting at home, and I believe that because at home, the focus the protection of your local network is for sure is was that at your institution. When hacker attacks that they can go inside your local network through some IoT devices. There's a hacker went home through the kettle of such an example. Cloud-based cyber attacks. It's another story that you have to go at some point. You have to go to the cloud, and so it's important to it's also a risky environment, and you have to think how to protect. There's a percentage. What is that? As you see, 68% is just this configuration. So it's a good idea to some to be right. Unauthorized access, as usual, we simple password or just even write down it somewhere and some other. So, but by the high number. Social engineering. Oh, probably all of us got some emails or even on their mobile phone, and your parcel just arrived, and you have to click somewhere or pay a small amount. Otherwise, so which is actually I would say that it should be the whole, and probably it is already the whole topic of the research. It includes not only the technical people but also psychologists and so on. What are the 10 questions in this case? Okay, and finally, it was already mentioned here the blind attacks. Just go to the source of the where the software is prepared. Yeah, and later we think that even if everything is really secure, you see here this green light, but it was affected. That's everything. And so we have it already. And again, numbers, it is about 66% the source of such kind of attacks. Here I just copy and paste some the top 10 in 2022. Probably pretty. There's no surprise. We know about it. So yeah. It's about the safety tricky. That is structural. It is that can be affected, and also probably some, not many of us, we got some phone call from a bank, and our police officer got such a phone call, and they set up the next phone call to try to find the hacker, and they didn't make it. So at least they recorded everything and they use it as a show. Okay. So we agreed that there is a need for the to protect us against such a hackers. So this was the patient numbers, how many people, how many specialists is needed over the web. Cybersecurity jobs. And the university is and one of the two of the purpose of the university is to offer some program and cybersecurity, and it's in cooperation with some of our partners. Let me mention just three of them. Italy, that's actually the consortium is the University of Catania, and they are very good in deep fake issues, so they can help us to teach, to make some research related to those topics. Finland, Vaasa University, they have very good critical structure. So our students can even connect to this they have cybersecurity program as well. But the idea is that actually it should be an animation that we should start with the first cycle. We are going to organize, actually, the minister already decided about it, that we try to go there as a Poznań of technology next as a European university. We try to gather people involved with all those logos which you'll see at the next circle, there are logos of European University where Polish universities are involved. They also have some research activity and teaching activity in cybersecurity. So the idea is make this network. It is why I asked that maybe we can join our networks as well. But also we go globally. Those logos on the third circle, it is just our direct connection with Poznań University of Technology. So we have over 20 years cooperation with Rochester Institute of Technology, and 2 years ago we started global cybersecurity. The idea is that we are sending them some people. We first offer the part of the course on site at our university or somewhere in this corporation universities, and next we'll just use a facility which is located in Rochester. It is close to Niagara Falls, so nice place. But they have really very modern facilities like a cyber range room, so you can experience like a real attack of hackers, including some stressful situation for people, how to behave in this way. Also, and I see young people here. I can already offer you the scholarship for PhD students in a cooperation with Florida International University. It is more related to digital forensic, but digital forensic can also work in I'm finishing in cybersecurity. And also far away is this National Forensic Science University in Gujarat State in India, where they just pointed, well, from Poland. 10 minutes ago, now somewhere in your country, so that's important. So just 2 examples already mentioned about the IoT medical devices, also security, and we are part of the Capable Horizon 2020 project. And we are responsible for this smart device, smartwatch, smart band devices, where we collected some medical data. So it's also an issue about the security of the data. And last slide, it's about this small advertisement also of our university. We have another campus, which is actually a kind of lab. Not only aircrafts, we are owner of several aircrafts, but also lab tests for drones or robots. And of course, from the perspective of cybersecurity, is a big issue. Such a possibility. That's it. Even. So
Okay. I don't want to stand behind between you and coffee, but questions for the coffee and tough questions. The first provocative question is claim we don't need the people for cybersecurity at all. We don't need security. If the system is good, we don't need security. Example, internet shops. It was a big problem. So the people in banking have been just hunting each day at the big shops. It was a big problem for the banks because of the money that disappears, and then police comes and claims that the bank is due diligence was not there and so on. So what is the solution? Something like even of these platforms that the trust is with the platform. The client does not lose money because the platforms they verify what's going on. And then we don't need any trust, any sophisticated problem for the trust. So we don't need well, okay, I'm exaggerating. Yeah. So if we live in a healthy way, we don't go to doctors that much. Of course, it does not solve all problems, cancer and so on.
I would say I would try a provocative answer, and the provocative answer is if you ever try to sell Amazon and eBay, you will notice that what is very convenient for the buyers is actually extremely inconvenient for the sellers now, because they are
Trust building.
the risk is that so I find that the very Amazon can as a fees that are charged to the buyer.
Yeah, but if you try, yeah.
No,
not release, but if you do some nasty thing, you're out immediately. So the Amazon don't want to have troubles, and you're out if you're making any troubles with the customers. So it was one issue. Yeah, another issue is that we are talking about competence, about frameworks, and so on. But look at my car. I have a keyless car. The example of how stupid the solution could be. And what we do in Europe, well, some people do solve some problem. The guy gets from Estonia, get a problem with chip manufacturer, and solve it. They do not trust them and say, well, on the safe side. They was in Norway, I remember, that developed the system, assuming that our best friends can cheat us. Okay, so let us go to coffee. We are slightly behind the schedule. It's 11:15. We've started the session and look at the digital version, mobile version of the problem, and then the printed one. So printed the reality in selected software